Raiders versus Saints recap. Mike, the Raiders did another unspeakable thing and just, you know, the NyQuil was right there up to their mouth and then they spit it out. They don't this Raiders team, how many times are we going to say they just need to take their damn medicine? They are playing out of another quarterback.
Yeah, there's a whole other conversation to be had about Shadur Sanders right now. I feel like he had a terrible weekend this past weekend between the game against BYU and like a day or two before during practice mentioning like, yeah, I'll have cleats in my locker that show which team is going to draft me. Like I already know what team's drafting me. So then he had red and blue cleats, clearly like I'm going first overall to the Giants. And the Giants beat the fucking Colts. They don't have the first pick anymore. They don't even have the second or the third pick right now. Good job, Shadur.
Dude,
way to really get on top of that one.
They didn't even just beat the Colts. They fucking all right, they said, "Oh, Shador wants to come here." Malik Neighbors said, "Absolutely fucking not."
Hey, yeah, maybe. Man. Yeah,
that
Neighbors
was
at a game.
hilarious.
Yeah, so that I just thought that was all funny. Like the writing had been on the wall that he seemingly wanted to be a Raider, and then he makes that move where it's like, yeah, I'm a Giant, and now it's like, yeah, you're not gonna be either, dude. Have fun being a Tennessee Titan. But that's gonna be weird. I don't know. I do still like Cam Ward, and I had felt the momentum for Shadur as the season progressed that he was the better pro quarterback as far as like, projecting, if you will. But I'm still undecided as far as like who I'd rather have. That being said, this is just me being optimistic. It might be a blessing in disguise to miss out on these quarterbacks because I saw one tweet today that was like, I've talked to scouts and GMs that have said, this draft might only have 2 quarterbacks that are worthy first rounders, and that's putting it pretty strong. Like these guys shouldn't be going as high as they're expected to go, essentially. And that's been the talk ever since the beginning of the season was like this quarterback draft class is not good. So, I'd rather get another Brock Bowers, who we will talk about in a second here, over a middling quarterback who's just going to put us back a few more years. If next year's draft class is going to be better, or we can pick like a Jalen Milroe in the second round, I'd much rather do that than, lose at least one of these games, have the third overall pick and pick one of those quarterbacks and then just, try to develop them for 3 years. Nothing works. They suck. Period. They suck. I was going to say something there, but, and, another 3 to 4, 5, 6 years setback. I want the right quarterback. And if that guy's not in this draft class, I don't want any quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't feel strongly about this quarterback draft class only because I only know really 2 players from it, and that's Shador Sanders, who knows how his play is going to translate to the NFL, and Cam Ward. Yeah, I haven't watched enough of Cam Ward to really have an opinion one way or another, but I mean, it just doesn't seem like. I mean, last year's draft class, it had Caleb Williams, it had Jaden Daniels. I forget who else.
McCarthy, Bo Nix, and Penix.
Yeah,
that was a record-breaking quarterback class. Record-breaking.
Last year was loaded, and the Raiders played their way out of that. But yeah, so definitely this doesn't seem. This kind of reminds me of the draft with Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis.
That or oh man, what's the guy that the Bills took years ago? EJ Manuel. But lately, I feel like it's just become the norm that like, oh, the top quarterback is going top 2, top 3, and there's going to be multiple. Like that EJ Manuel class, like, and also the Kenny Pickett class, like no quarterback went until the middle of the first round. So I don't know. I still expect quarterbacks to go top 5 to 10, if not for sure top 5. Like, again, the Titans, maybe the Browns did a weird contract thing with Deshaun Watson that suggests they're going to keep him for 2 more years. So maybe they're not going with a quarterback. I thought they would, but anyways.
Or maybe they're able to move his contract. Maybe they moved up the money.
Right. Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then added void years.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Either way, they're eating that money, man. One way or another.
Yeah. But you know what the Raiders are going to do and what they probably should do? So, all right. I think they've played their way out of getting a top quarterback in this draft. I just don't see it happening unless they like get a quarterback who's probably not worthy of a first round pick.
They need a lot of miracle wins next week. Like the Giants this week, they need like 2 or 3 more of them next week. Like the Jags or Titans. Forget the Patriots. They pretty much they're locked in at first overall. They're probably getting Travis Hunter, unless they like somebody else. But
unless they want to trade back. You know?
Oh yeah, and get a haul. Absolutely, yeah.
Which the only difference, do.
Yeah, they should. Especially if somebody's coming up for a quarterback, they'll pay up for it. If there's no quarterback worth the first overall pick, I wonder if the trade value is less. You know, to get that first pick. I wonder. But if Travis Hunter is that guy, then it's probably still a very high price. Regardless, it should be a high price. It's the first pick. But point being, you know, the Browns, Titans, Jags, now the Giants, like if a couple of those teams can win next week, the Raiders can get back up to like maybe 5th overall. And we're playing the Chargers, so let's be honest, like I don't expect them to win. But, you know, we'll see.
Yeah, but what the Raiders are probably going to do is they're not going to draft a quarterback this year. Derek Carr's probably going to get cut from the Saints. And I could see a scenario where there's a reunion.
Yeah, maybe. The Saints are picking behind us. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look at Carr's contract. I wouldn't say that it's like a likely thing that Carr's going to get cut. But I know, you know, they had struggles, and maybe the next coach that comes in, I don't know if the Saints are going to be looking for a new GM or not. But if they are, like if they get a new GM, yeah, I could very well see it being just like, you know what, let's just go in a new direction. I mean, if any team would be smart to tank for Arch Manning, it's the Saints. Because they had the old Arch Manning as their quarterback long ago. So, you know, that would be a cool story, although I'd much rather the Raiders be able to get Arch Manning. But, you know, that would take us having to win no more than 2 wins probably next season. So I don't know if I can do it again. There's a conversation to be had about Sam Darnold. Like I watched that entire Vikings-Packers game, and I don't know. I think that dude is a Pro Bowler. I kind of keep talking about him week in and week out at this point. If the Vikings are dumb enough not to keep him, the Raiders are probably one of the few teams that need a quarterback that have the money to spend on him.
Well, what about this? What if the Vikings do sign Darnold to a long-term contract, and then they decide to trade away JJ McCarthy?
He would be I believe a far better option than either of the quarterbacks in this draft class. I saw Ted Nguyen tweet, you know, in like theoretically, would you trade the first round pick for JJ McCarthy straight up? And I think I would. I think that's better than taking a wide receiver, you know?
It's better than not knowing if you're going to get Arch Manning next year.
Yeah. And the Raiders saw McCarthy firsthand in the preseason this year. That was the game where he ended up, after the game, being out for the year. But he was dicing up their third stringers, whatever, but still he looked good. Like the arm, talent, accuracy, it was all there. you know. So I wouldn't be opposed to it at all. The only negative is that that's one less year of your, rookie contract, but he still
Well,
gets the 5th-year option. So it's like,
yeah.
it can be done, that I would not be opposed to it, but that'd be interesting. I don't know. I don't see the Vikings doing that though. I think the Vikings at worst take the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers route of just, we're gonna go that Packers route of just developing the guy. Sam Darnold, there's no guarantee that Sam Darnold works next year. He should, with the same coaching and everything, but if he were to just suddenly start not playing well, we have the guy that's, hopefully ready at that point to come in and be the guy. That's what we drafted him to be. So, yeah, I don't think that they would or should do that. But if they were willing to part with McCarthy, absolutely, I would trade for him.
Yeah.
We haven't talked a lick about the Saints game.
Yeah. I mean, really, what is there to talk about? Right.
I think really, let's look at the box score really quick. Aiden O'Connell had a pretty good game. He was making some good plays. 2 touchdowns, 242 yards. Amir Abdullah, 20 carries, 115 yards. I mean, when they signed...
I saw this thing where it's like Amir Abdullah when the Raiders should be tanking, and it's like prime LT, LaDainian Tomlinson.
Yeah. I remember when they signed Amir Abdullah, like, he was just a nobody on, like, the Lions at that point. He was a great college player for Nebraska, but his career just kind of gone to, like, typical third-string running back who's just going to kind of fizzle out in, like, 2 years type of guy. And then we signed him, and I was like, end of the road, pal. Like, you're not making it past, the training camp. And here he is. Like, I want to say he first came to this team in Josh McDaniels' first season, and he's been here since. And then finally he's getting his opportunity. It's like, this guy can play. Like, he's a clear-cut, like, third down back in this league. And he's not young. I want to say he's like, let's see. He's 31 years old. But he looks young, But anyways, 20
he's
carries,
not going to last very, very long at 31. No, I mean, not as a running back.
No, he might get re-signed for another year, and he might not even make the team next year after, training camp. But regardless, he's been doing pretty damn good for this team of late. He's
got a really cool name, like me with my my obsession with names on the Raiders. But every single time I think of Amir Abdullah, I think of like the Water Boy when the professor's like the medulla oblongata. So I just think Amir Abdullah oblongata.
Yes, that's. All right. So receiving, Jacoby Myers, good game, 5 catches, 61 yards, a touchdown. Trey Tucker had a nice touchdown from O'Connell. But the big, storyline in this game, as it has been all year, is Brock Bowers, 7 catches, 77 yards. He broke like all the records in one game. And I don't have them all in front of me, but he broke the NFL rookie record. So he passed Puka Nakua's record from last year with 106 catches. Now he's sitting at 108, which I believe is also the most receptions ever in a Raiders season for any player. Like Tim Brown, I think Darren Waller a few years ago might have tied Tim Brown or got really close to Tim Brown. I'm pretty sure he broke that record. I'll have to look at like what that actual record was, but and there was a third one. It must have been yards, most yards by a rookie tight end, something like that. I need to pull them up, but can you possibly pull up the 3 records that he broke? Here, I'm going to try to find Tim Brown's.
Okay. I have it right here. Let me pull it up. So Brock Bowers rookie records this season, and this is from @VegasSportsTD on Twitter. So most receiving yards by a rookie tight end in NFL history, most catches by a rookie tight end in NFL history, set the record for most receptions set the Raiders record for most receptions in
Yeah.
a single season. So
And
that's
the
just
most
for a tight
catches-
end, right?
I want to say he beat out Puka. Like, it's ever for a rookie, wide receiver or tight end. Like, it's receivers. And then the one for the yards that he beat, that was Mike Ditka that he beat out from however long ago. I just want to see
Since 1991.
Yeah. So yeah, 63-year-old record. Can I find?
Dude, John
Tim
F.
Brown's
Kennedy was still alive when that record was set.
Yeah. Okay, so on this website that I'm seeing, okay, yeah. So Brock Bowers is now the leading all-time receiver in a season, for receptions for the Las Vegas Raiders period. Darren Waller just recently broke that record in 2020 with 107 catches. So Bowers being 108 broke that. He could shatter it next week. And then Tim Brown was the long withstanding record holder with 104 dating back to 1997. And then right behind him was Devontae Adams in 2023 with 103, as well as Hunter Renfrow in 2021 with 103. So, yeah. But Bowers, man, I mean, I started talking about it probably mid-season, of just like, if this season's a complete wash, at least can Brock Bowers break some records? And he broke more records than I would have expected, which is very impressive. Todd Christensen, let's see. Of course, I just X out of the thing, but I can just go to my history.
While you look for that, I'm gonna take the other comments.
Yep.
Joel says, "I don't see us drafting a quarterback, unfortunately." Yeah, it's looking a lot less likely now.
In the first round, for sure. I mean, I think it really depends on what they do in free agency. If they can find a quarterback worth signing, whether it's somebody as good as Darnold or Carr, if he's out there, or if it's a guy who's just like I wouldn't even call it a bridge quarterback, but just like a bridge quarterback with like some upside, but also like kind of like one team's trash is another team's hopefully treasure, but probably trash, like a Justin Fields. Worst comes to worst, Zach Wilson,
Raiders should get Jameis, dude. If they want Brock Bowers
Jameis
to be a Hall of Famer,
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Jameis's interceptions are not going to count against Brock Bowers. Bowers is only going to get fed.
Oh, man. Yeah, and then whoever the receiver is, or top receiver is, plus Myers, I would hope is still here. Kind of off topic, but I meant to say it when we were talking to Shedeur Sanders, but somebody tweeted that if they were to comp Shedeur Sanders to a player, it would be Geno Smith. And I was like, you know what? That's a great call. But it's like, especially coming out of college, like he has the hype, but then when he plays, it's like in the NFL, I just don't expect him to be that great. But then Geno went on to have a good career. He still is with the Seahawks and become a, viable starter in this league. So I can see it. It's just, I don't think my gist for Shedeur has always been, I just don't expect him to just come in and be successful like a guy like CJ Stroud, which isn't really saying much this season, but his rookie year was awesome. Or obviously a Jaden Daniels, like Shadeur's not going to play like Jaden Daniels, I would expect more along the lines of a Geno Smith. Damn it, I was going to say something else right there, but I think I lost it. Anyways, as far as Todd Christensen, yes, he is up in there. After a couple more Hunter Renfrow, or no, one more Devontae Adams season 2022, Christensen is up there with 95 receptions in 1986 for LA and 1983 also, of course, in LA. And then right behind him is Jerry Rice, 2002, 92.
Demokes says AOC MVP incoming. I know you're joking a little bit, but even as a serious thought, like there's no scenario in which I could envision it. Like even if Aiden O'Connell did go out there and throw like 50 touchdowns next year, which isn't going to happen, I I feel like the NFL would still find a way to give it to like Lamar or like
Lamar, right?
you know
Josh Allen.
Josh
I
Allen
mean,
or
I
Patrick
think
Mahomes.
I don't know if Aiden O'Connell had to come out of nowhere and throw 50. Okay, I think if he threw 40 touchdowns, he probably still wouldn't get it. But it does depend on how the Raiders do. Like if the Raiders were like the Vikings this year, 14 wins, he'd be the MVP. Because that's the difference. That's why they're winning. They went from a 2, 3, 4 win team to 14. It's because he's throwing 40 touchdowns and yada yada yada. But that's what I was gonna say. I just
How many
saw.
touchdowns does Darnold have this year?
I want to say like north of 30, like 34 or something.
Here, let me see.
In 2002, Charlie Garner had 91 catches. That's amazing.
Okay,
Michael
so
Crabtree, 2016, 2015, 89, 85 catches. Nice.
according to ESPN, hold on, that's all right. Sam Darnold has 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. It's not fantastic.
I mean, it's good compared to
35
most quarterbacks.
yeah, compared to
The
most.
interceptions are a little like if he was more
It's a
down to
little
like
high.
7, yeah, 12 is a little high. Completely back to the Raiders. Just one other thing to mention about Brock Bowers is the fact that he's the third leading reception holder in the NFL this season. He's only behind Jamar Chase, who has 117, and Amon-Ra, who I'm assuming this is after tonight's game, has 109 catches. Brock Bowers has 108. So, I mean, a tight end, which right behind him is Trey McBride with 104, like a tight end being, especially a rookie, like a rookie tight end being that high on the list of, receiving leaders in the NFL, that's just, man, like he's impressive.
Frank says that he prefers drafting the best available talent over drafting it for need. We might not have that luxury this time around.
I agree completely, Frank. And, we had our live reaction to the Brock Bowers pick. And I remember we both were very shocked because, the initial thought is like, well, Michael Mayer, what are we doing here? Like, you guys need a tackle, you need a corner.
Yeah.
You can't get a quarterback, so what are we doing? And then within about a minute, I said, you know what? That was Mike Mayock. Mike Mayock, wow. That was Tom Telesco, not Mike Mayock. Mike Mayock never did this. That was Tom Telesco picking best player available. And I can't complain about that, And then here we are, records broken. He made the right choice, And I'd much rather just see the Raiders pick best player available and, just go with what the scouting department tells you of, yep, that is clearly the best player right here. If it's like a tie and it's like, oh man, who do we pick here? Yeah, go for the need. Sure. But, first round, it's usually pretty obvious who the best player available is. Pick them. Like in 2 to 3 years, I'd rather not be regretting that we didn't take the best player possible. Like, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. All the years in a row of like Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, Aaron Rodgers, these guys who were literally picked one pick after the Raiders picked, who became fucking legendary Hall of Famers, and the Raiders picked absolute nobodies because of need. Jamarcus Russell. Would any Raider fan rather have Jamarcus Russell or fucking Megatron? We could have took Calvin Johnson, and then a year later, we could have picked a quarterback. Oh, that seems pretty hindsight 2020, right? But I'm tired of seeing that. I'm so tired of it. I mean, even Alex Leatherwood, fucking Jonathan Abram, Damon Arnett. I mean, we talked about just last week or 2 weeks ago, like Henry Ruggs and Damon Arnett over Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and some other corner. Like maybe they could have traded up, got AJ Terrell, who was locking Terry McLaurin down the other night. It's just like, dude, pick the best player. Agreed.
Demoke says, nope, DC ain't coming back. Tom Brady doesn't want that MFer.
Yeah, I mean, you very well might be right. I don't know if you're referring to that video of Tom Brady saying, like, really, they're going to keep that motherfucker back when he was a free agent. I still don't think that was about Derek Carr. I really don't. I think that
Ryan
was about another
Fitzpatrick.
team.
Ryan Fitzpatrick thinks it was about him.
Man, that's rough. I mean, we'd have to go back to the teams and who the quarterbacks were, but I feel like there were some teams that stuck with quarterbacks that I would say were far worse than Derek Carr. But hey,
Well,
you never know.
one thing we do know is that Brady wanted to go to the 49ers. The Niners decided to go with Jimmy Garoppolo.
And he would know
But-
how good or bad Garoppolo was.
Yeah. Although Jimmy Garoppolo, I want to, he was just coming off his best season. The 49ers had just gone to the Super Bowl and lost. So
Right.
it made sense why they stuck with Garoppolo, but ultimately it was the wrong choice. Because
Yeah.
had you had Tom Brady, you probably have a Super Bowl by now.
Yeah, I think you definitely do with the defense that they had. I could, if honestly, this is not being a Raider homer or Derek Carr homer, which I'm really not. Like, I would bank on it that he was talking about Jimmy Garoppolo because of how badly I'm sure he wanted to be a Niner, and how I'm sure he knew that if he was the quarterback of that team, he would have won a Super Bowl. Absolutely.
Yeah.
He grew up a fan of the team. Like, there's no way. To me, that had to be about the Niners, about Jimmy G.
His first football memory was literally him at the game where Joe Montana and Dwight Clark linked up for the catch.
Yeah.
So yeah. Demoke says nope. I think when I mentioned JJ McCarthy, so Demokes is not a fan of that. Although I am a fan of Demokes' profile picture.
Yeah. Great times.
Frank says Amir was big time for Big Red. Was he on the Chiefs?
Yeah, Big Red meaning, I'm assuming
Andy Reid.
Unless Big Red means Nebraska, which I've never heard that personally. At least I'm not a big Nebraska fan, so I wouldn't know. But maybe if Frank could
elaborate a little bit.
Elaborate, yeah.
Oh, Frank says Nebraska.
Okay, yeah. No, from what I understand, fucking Amir Abdullah was a beast for Nebraska.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Todd Christensen, I think that was the name. Yeah, Todd Christensen was the only other tight end on that list.
Yeah,
in terms of the receptions.
That and Darren Waller just a few years ago, actually surpassing Tim Brown. Funny enough. But yeah, I mean, the thing about that, Christensen probably did it in way less amount of games, and in a league that did not pass the ball as often as it does now. So the fact that Christensen was on that list and at some point for a long time was leading that like the leading receiver in any given season in 2 different seasons, like that's insanely impressive.
Yeah. Frank says great tight ends are a big part of the Raider history.
Yep.
I like the new Bowers kid.
Yep. Dave Casper, Todd Christensen, now Brock Bowers. Darren Waller had some fun years, and me personally, I still think Zach Miller is one of the most underrated tight ends ever. He statistically, he doesn't. Is this a joke or actually?
No, you're missing.
Clyde
Walford.
I wouldn't consider this guy a legend or anything, but he had good years. Was Jared Cook. Jared Cook was pretty good for us. I mean,
not quite as good as Clive Walford.
No, Clive Walford, legend.
Joel says Mark Davis did confirm that the Raiders tried to get Brady.
Right. Well, in that sense, then if they tried to get Brady, then what would have then they weren't trying to stick with Carr? You know what I mean? I would assume Brady said no to them, but what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, can Mark Davis confirm how hard he tried? Like, try a little harder. Come on.
Right.
Gronk already said it was Carr. He told Dana White on a podcast.
Oh, hey, there you go. That's fucked up to say that out loud, but hey.
Yeah.
Well,
Did Gronk say it was officially Carr, like, that Brady was talking about, or did Gronk say that he thinks it was Carr?
Yeah, I mean that's a good point.
Yeah, Demoke says it was Gruden. I don't think he wanted Brady.
Yeah, I mean I remember at the time I definitely thought that too. Of like I don't know if Gruden and Brady would. Well, I always thought especially with Carr and the way that Gruden's kind of molding Carr was like a lot of efficient passing. Like I thought, yeah, that works great with Brady. Like that's Brady's thing, but.
Well, you thought Brady was going to be you thought Carr was going to be a Patriot, remember?
Yeah, I thought had they moved on from Carr at that point, that Carr would have made a lot of sense in New England.
And then Josh McDaniels came here.
Yeah. So again, that kind of made sense to me. And at least early on, Josh McDaniels was very in on Carr, and then all of a sudden he wasn't, right?
Yeah. Frank says Waller, right? Yeah, you almost forget. Waller was really good.
Yeah. It's going to be weird. Like, give it 10 years, I think Waller is going to be just forgotten.
Yep. Because you already kind of forget about him right now. But, he was very good for the short time that he was.
He really had, 2 years of, is he one of the best tight ends in football? I think he is. And all of a sudden, no, he's too injury prone.
Well, I don't know if it was the best, because it was always Kelsey versus Kittle. But, among the
in
best.
That, it was is this duo actually a trio?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, they each had their thing.
Even 4, because the NFL had 4 really good tight ends. Because Mark Andrews, yeah.
Yeah.
all at one time. But Frank says Raymond Chester.
Absolutely.
Brady to San Francisco made the most sense, really, in hindsight. Yeah, but Kyle Shanahan, honestly, with a brilliant move, because, Tom Brady was old. And then also, you can't have a quarterback who changes the play at the line of scrimmage. Like, that wouldn't have worked.
Right, yeah. Why go for Brady in 2019 or whatever year that was when you could go for Kirk Cousins in 2024?
You see, what people don't understand is that actually Super Bowls are kind of overrated, okay? It's about calling the right play at the right time. It's not about calling the right play for the situation, okay? It's really, if the defense lines up a certain way, you got to call the right play, okay? And then quarterbacks like Tom Brady just will never understand that. So it would never have worked. Tom Brady doesn't know a thing or two about football intelligence, okay? Like Kyle Shanahan does. He just doesn't comprehend the game that way. I'm sorry, Tom. It's just Kyle Shanahan is one of a kind. Can't replace him. Yeah, so Mike, where in unrelated speak, where do you think Ben Johnson's going?
I actually have made a list of the coaches so far that I have seen as far as coaching candidates. Like I have kind of ranked them. And I think I have 19 or 20 names for the Raiders. That was kind of off topic, but from what I've seen, the rumor or the slowly heating implication is that Ben Johnson is interested in the Bears, likely because of Caleb and just the weapons that they have. But I don't
it's not going to happen.
I don't think that makes sense.
He's not going to go in the same division.
Exactly. I think, why would you want to go, of all divisions, the best division, or at least the toughest division in football? Like, you have a two-way tie that's going to get settled in week 18 between you and the fucking Vikings. And then the Packers are right there behind them that can easily play up to their standard. Like, why would you want to go coach the Bears? I'm sorry. Like, if I were a coach, I'd be like, I'd see the Lions, Packers, and Vikings, and I'd be like, yeah, no, thank you. Then again, I mean, the AFC West is kind of the same thing, unfortunately. But
Yeah, like, do I want to be the worst team in the best division?
yeah, yeah. So I mean, my hopes are extremely low as far as the Raiders getting Ben Johnson. It's just, I mean, if we had to bring up a list of teams that are going to need a new coach, assuming on some of these, Raiders, Bears, Jets, Giants. The Titans coach is on his first year, so I'm going to assume he doesn't get fired. Although you could argue he should. But again, it's year one, so it's kind of tough. And he's not an interim coach, like Antonio Pierce is. Who else needs a coach? I think I said the Bears. Oh, the Saints. The Cowboys. Hey, yeah. Man, if the Cowboys let go of their coach, whose name I'm totally blanking on right now,
Mike McCarthy.
Mike McCarthy, thank you. That would make a lot of sense for Ben Johnson. Granted, would Ben Johnson rather go to the AFC to stay away from the Lions? Maybe, but I don't. As long as he's out of the division, I think he'd probably be comfortable.
Yeah.
Man, the Cowboys would be interesting, especially if. Imagine if he goes to the Cowboys. He's got Dak on that big ass contract, CeeDee Lamb, and then he goes. Maybe he beefs up the offensive line, which is probably his priority number one. Looking at the Lions and how they're built. But right behind it would be, imagine the Cowboys getting Gianti with Ben Johnson calling plays. Like, man, that would be something.
I've got something for you.
Yep.
If owners were actually smart, like if they were forward thinking, like let's just say the Warriors were when they fired Mark Jackson and hired Steve Kerr.
Yep.
Right now, if I'm the Cincinnati Bengals, if
oh my god,
if they miss the playoffs, you have an excuse to like, you don't have to fire Zach Taylor immediately, but just would you not like give Ben Johnson a call like, hey, we would like to give you the bag to coach this football team, but we just need to know who is your plan, at defensive coordinator, because we also need help fixing this defense. You can coach Joe Burrow. You can coach Jamar Chase. You can coach Chase Brown. It could all be yours.
Yeah.
Could you imagine Joe Burrow paired with Ben Johnson?
I mean, imagine that offense, and then you just tack on, like, Chase Brown is very, very good. I would imagine he would do a similar thing with, the Lions of having a 2 running back tandem. If they could get a more talented back to be the sort of 1A in that offense, and then, like you mentioned, like really focus on the defense, like that offense would just be so insane. And the tackles that, like, they have Trent Brown, whatever, but Amarius Mims, who they just drafted, like, that dude's a fucking mammoth. So, I mean, yeah, it'd be very interesting.
Yeah, no, the only problem is the Bengals are not. I don't think they're gonna do it. They're gonna say, man, we just barely missed the playoffs, or maybe they, all right. I had this, and we'll talk about this during the fantasy recap, but I had like a very varying emotions. I started thinking, I was like, man, but the Bengals in the playoffs would be very, would be very fun to watch. And then I was like, no, shut up. We can't let them have anything. Like, I was very much going back and forth, but we'll talk about that when we get to the fantasy thing. How are we feeling about this Raiders versus Chargers game? I guess I'm supposed to go first. I'm thinking that, all right, the Chargers have already clinched a postseason spot. I could see a scenario where they rest starters, but I just don't think that they will because I don't know how the tiebreaker exactly would go between them and the Broncos. If the Broncos were to win and match their record in the event that Broncos win and Chargers lose, right?
Right. So I'm gonna pull up the AFC playoff picture right now.
I can pull it up right now. I have it up.
That'd be great. They are currently tied with the Steelers at 10-6 for the 5 and 6 seed, right?
Yeah.
My hunch would be that they are going to play to win this game, which I think every team is doing that. Actually, that's something I want to bring up. Remind me about Foster Moreau. Remind me after this point. Pittsburgh is facing the Bengals this week, a team who very much wants to win their game. Unfortunately for the Bengals, they need a lot of help to get in, but it's not impossible, right? They need the Broncos to lose. They're facing the Chiefs. Meanwhile, the Chargers, again, are playing the fucking Raiders. So I just, point being here, okay, if I'm the Chargers, who would I rather face? The Baltimore Ravens or the Houston Texans?
Texans, easy.
Easy. I very badly want to be the 5th seed. So hopefully, if I'm the Chargers, I get help from the Bengals. Steelers lose. We win. We're the 5th seed. And we have a very favorable matchup in the first round of the playoffs. And if we win that, then who do we probably face? Assuming, the 5th or the 6th and 7th seeds lose to the Bills and Ravens, we're going to go face the Chiefs, whose offense is not really that impressive this year and is our division opponent. We know we can beat them. The Chargers have, I know it's the Chiefs, it's not like it's a gimme or anything, but they have a road. If they get this 4th or 5th seed, they have a pretty solid road to the AFC Championship.
Yeah. They honestly do. And I mean, it'll just be a reminder to 49er fans what we could have had or what we
Raider
did
fans.
Have.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, for Niner fans, what we did have. And Raider fans, what you could have had. And yeah, I don't know how many times do we have that conversation, Mike? Do you have a count of how many times we just broke off into a Jim Harbaugh tangent over the past year?
Yeah, it was, the amount of times was actually insane. Whoa, shut the fuck up.
I mean, it was great. I love Jim Harbaugh, but man.
So can we God damn, can we watch a TikTok on here or no? Not like me doing this, but just, can I send you a TikTok and you be able to put it up?
Send it to me on Twitter.
Okay. Yes, there we go. On the Silver and Gold or?
Yeah, Silver and Gold. Do Silver and Gold.
Okay, of course it wanted to post it. Let's see. How do I share?
Just copy the link and then send
okay,
it.
Okay, copy. Thank you. All right. Sorry, to you or Silver and Gold?
Silver and Gold.
So I've had many conversations. And the whole point about the Raiders need to take their medicine, right? And I've had conversations with my dad and whoever about man, why don't they just do what they should do and lose, right?
Yeah.
Here's why. Here is why. Continue.
Yeah, sorry, Foster Moreau. I didn't mean to pause on you like that.
Going into last week's game, we're not playing for a playoff berth, right? I mean, there's plenty of the fan base that wants us to lose so we can get a better draft pick. I'm not blind to that. I see that, and that's, I mean, they could think that all they want, but people have to play people have to play with passion. They have to play with pride, and they have to play for each other, and they have to play for their jobs. You have to play because this is your resume. And I fucking hate talking about resumes. I hate the man that's talking about their resume is out of a damn job. That's a fact. So you could think about your resume all you want, but in reality, you got to play for pride, and you got to play for not only the name on the back, but the name on the front and the logo on the side of your damn helmet. That's a fact. And I'd love to see us get back to doing that. And there's look, you could, work smart, not hard is not something I believe in. You have to work your balls off. You have to work as hard as you possibly can just to have a chance in this league. Just to have a chance in life, you got to work tirelessly, right? That's what I believe. And if you work hard enough, eventually you'll get smart. But I don't believe in all the rest of the hoopla. I just work hard, be where your feet are, and just the secret's in the dirt. The secret's in the daily grind.
I mean, it's true, and I've mentioned it before. Like, teams aren't just going to go out and try and lose, no matter how many times it actually seems like that does happen. Though, like, look at the Chicago Bears.
Right. I mean, the only people who really have a reason to like want their team, like people of power, to want their team to lose, those people would be either the owner because they want a certain quarterback, or the GM because they want a certain quarterback or player or whatever. But, the coaches and the players, like, they're never going to feed into that shit. Like, it's just never going to happen. Because literally their life is on the line, playing week in and week out this game that they are trying to continue to play. So, yeah, like, obviously I would love for the Raiders to tank, but I know that they won't and they shouldn't because of everything that he's saying in that video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know, like, for me, this Raiders versus Chargers game, I mean, if the Chargers play their starters, I think the Chargers are going to win. Like, the Raiders are not going to continue their winning streak, in my opinion. Although at the beginning of the season, you said for sure Raiders and Chargers are going to split.
Yeah, and that was back when I had a much more confident feel on this season.
Back when you thought Antonio Pierce...
I thought Antonio Pierce was a good coach that had this locker room by the balls, and Max Crosby was healthy, and we just signed Christian Wilkins, and in theory, our quarterback room got better. Our offensive coordinator got better because he was a more experienced guy, right? And our tight end room got better. That's probably the only true thing that I've said so far, in hindsight, so. Yeah, I just thought the Chargers had a year to go before getting to the AFC Championship sort of type. And here we are, as usual, with Jim Harbaugh. It's year one, and I just explained 5 minutes ago why they have a solid shot at the AFC Championship.
Dude, and think about this. Like you said, they're a year ahead. Like, I think I called it. I was like, man, they're going to be a lot better than like we expect, because Harbaugh's going to get them ready, and then he has them believing in themselves. His locker room stuff, man. I love to see all the videos of it, because it's like, it's cool to see a football team like rally around, like a leader, and I don't know. I'm jealous.
Yeah. I haven't watched many of their in the locker room videos. I saw one this past weekend where it was like they were singing "He's a Jolly Good Fellow," like Derwin James was kind of leading it. I thought that was funny. Like he brings a very wholesome vibe, which is cool. But you sent me a video that was, honestly, I really was like, that's a good fucking answer. Was when they were like, like they, I don't know what the question was, but probably something along the lines of like, you always say like, who's got it better than you? Like, who does? He's like, oh, maybe us in the future.
Yeah, he goes, nobody. Well, if anybody, it's us in the future.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, you know what? That's about the best answer you could have gave.
Yep. He's like, except for future us. Future us probably has it better than us.
Yeah.
Like, I love that shit, dude. I eat it up. And, it's like for somebody who's just like Harbaugh is I'd say, very encouraging of his players and gets them to believe in themselves. And
Yep.
man, I know that he could have, I know what he could have done for the Raiders, but he wasn't interested. And I don't think we may never know how hard the Raiders tried, because from what we know is they reached out and that's it. But
Yeah.
it's just, it hurts extra for the Raiders because he went to the Chargers. And man, think about this. Like the Chargers, like we mentioned, are a year ahead. This was supposed to be like a down year for them because of their contracts. They're gonna have money to spend going forward.
Yeah, I remember, like, the assumption was they're going to trade or cut Khalil Mack and or Joey Bosa. And then they ended up keeping both of them. They got rid of Keenan Allen. They draft fucking McConkey and, of course, Joe Alt. They just look – they made all the right moves in everything I just listed, Like, imagine their team wouldn't be the same if they didn't have Mack and Bosa and or Bosa.
Yep. No, dude.
So,
oh my God. Once, like, I knew, I had a strong feeling that he wasn't going to get rid of Bosa or Mack because those are two good, like, cornerstone kind of defenders.
Yep.
And, like, I just, knowing Harbaugh, he can turn stars that are, like, maybe in the wrong system and get them playing at a high level. Like we saw that Niner team that he took over, like for, under Mike Singletary, and then he turned them around and like all of a sudden it's like, wow, this 49ers team was loaded all along.
Yeah.
Because literally in the, you went from like a 1 season turnaround to like, all right, we all knew Patrick Willis was good, but it's like, oh man, that it just went to a Hall of Fame defense almost. It felt like overnight, to go into the NFC Championship game. And then look at the Chargers, dude. Derwin James deserves to be an All-Pro this year.
Oh man. Yeah.
This I think has been Derwin James' best season. So, yeah. Frank says the players will always try to win, coaches and above, maybe not so much. Yeah, it's a good point. Like Foster Moreau said, they're trying to keep their jobs. This is why I thought like Antonio Pierce is not going to tank. He's trying to coach for his job.
Yeah.
But
well, that's why.
If Antonio Pierce was going to lose it, if he was going to lose his job, he's going to lose his job already. Like,
yeah. The rare occasion, in my opinion, that even a coach would tank is if they have an excuse. For example, not that they tanked, but when Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt in 2018 or 17, and then you guys proceeded to get the second overall pick and pick Bosa, that is reason where a coach can say, whether he's early on in his time as the coach or just he has the excuse of, well, my quarterback got fucked. Like, look at our backup was not good enough. That's the only time I can imagine a coach tanking just to get a stellar player on their team. And then next year they get to run it back with the quarterback healthy. And it's like, we're going to be significantly better. That's the only time I could ever see a coach tanking. Because most coaches, you have a seat. Like, look at the coach for the Bengals. It's like they're so bad that people are talking about firing that head coach. I'm totally forgetting his name right now, but he's a good coach.
Zach Taylor.
Zach Taylor. I think he's a fine head coach. He's fine. Their defense is atrocious, and he's an offensive-minded guy. He's taken them to the Super Bowl. If you can get Ben Johnson, then I think it'd be a smart move. But other than that, they shouldn't fire him. Like you take away, or maybe not take away, but you choose to look away from the first like 5, 6, whatever many weeks of the season for the Bengals. they're like 6-4 or 7-4 in the past however many weeks. Like, it's just they started terribly slow, in large part because of their defense.
If I was the Bengals owner, which I'm not, but if I was, I'd say, Ben Johnson, this is Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh, this is Ben Johnson. You guys are now the two coaches of this football team.
Yeah.
And you and Joe Burrow are going to win every single Super Bowl from here on out.
That would be a hell of a combo, man. Oh.
What, Ben Johnson and Saleh, or Ben Johnson and
Well, both, but Ben Johnson and Saleh, I'm looking at this from like a coaching standpoint for any team. Like, Saleh is going to be an interesting defensive coordinator candidate out there, and then obviously Ben Johnson. Like, you have those guys in charge of your offense and defense. Those are guys who have recently had top units on their respective sides of the field. Like, you pair them together, that's nasty if they can get it to work.
Yep. Joel says if we wanted to tank, we should have kept Ritter in.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah. So, who's going to win this game, Mike? Who do you think? I'm picking the Chargers.
I am also picking the Chargers. Not a question.
Not even a slight question? Huh?
If the Raiders win this game, you can punch me twice. Oh, no. No, that's not actually serious. We're still going to do that. But no. If the Raiders win this game, I will be pissed off because we just won the past two that we shouldn't have fucking won. Can we please stop now? Like, let the better team beat us for once.
Man, I should have picked the Raiders in this one. Yeah, against, for the Jaguars game.
Yeah, and I only picked the Saints because I was just hoping my extremely incredible streak would keep up if I did. But
I was sure the Raiders were going to win.
For sure. I was too. I should have just picked them and swallowed my pride. But anyways, if they win this game, the Raiders, if they win this game, they would knock themselves probably out of the top 10 in the draft, and that's
all right.
At least most likely. They're at like 8 right now. Like, the Saints probably lose this week because they're facing, I think, the Buccaneers. They're getting cornswoggled. And then Chicago, I don't know who Chicago's facing. Their division's tough. They're going to lose. They're facing the Packers. So I guess that just depends on if the Packers are locked into their spot at like the 6th seed or whatever. And we're tied with Chicago, so. But we would have the. Well, actually, I don't know.
We would slide down to the 9th pick. Oh, well, actually,
if New Orleans loses, which they should, we might pass them up. So we probably won't go out of the top 10, but we can go as far down as 10. So, hey, Niners and Raiders back to back again.
How fun!
That was fun. Yeah. That'd be great for the podcast, though. Shit.
It would be great if the Niners don't win against the Cardinals.
Yeah. What would actually be great is if the Raiders lose this game, as they should, and if Carolina, New York Jets, and Jacksonville win their matchups this week, and then we can get up to 5th overall. That'd be great. So go Jacksonville, Carolina, go Jets.
Well, actually, if the 49ers did win this upcoming week, they would be 7-9 tied with these teams, and it goes by strength of schedule, right? Yes. So the team, actually, they would probably move down a spot because maybe the Cardinals might jump them, because theoretically the Niners would be a harder opponent.
Well,
and the Cardinals would be a worse opponent.
Okay, strength of schedule. See, Indianapolis, Dallas, Arizona, they are in reverse order. So the easiest schedule puts you at the highest because you, in theory, lost to better or worse teams. You are the worst of those teams. So
wow.
If you won and those 3 teams lose, you would fall down to 14. You would drop 4 spots.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, Niners just shut down Purdy. My God.
You would definitely fall behind Arizona.
Mm.
And then, I mean, Indy, who's Indy facing? Oh, man.
Bro,
I wanna say they're-
Niners need to lose this week, man.
I want to say Indianapolis is facing either the Jags or it's the Jags. It's the Jags. I mean, I'm rooting for the Jags to win that game, but you're now rooting for Indianapolis to win that game. And then Dallas, unless they're facing the Giants, they would have a tough matchup. So,
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, that's interesting.
Yep.
Frank says, Harbaugh ain't going to let us win. No way.
no, and with the playoff scenario for the Chargers relative to the Steelers, like the Chargers need to win this game.
Yeah.
Unless the Steelers have already played and they already won their game, then maybe the Chargers go, actually, we don't need to play that hard here, and maybe they rest Herbert and J.K. Dobbins and McConkey.
I mean, how would the tiebreaker go between them and the Broncos? Because that could still be like you got to think about it this way.
Yeah.
I would rather face the Ravens than the Bills, right? Because at least you might get playoff Lamar.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, point being the 5th seed is just far better than the other two. So if they have a chance at surpassing the Steelers, like they should.
But really,
beat the Raiders.
Really, the real reason is if for whatever circumstance the Broncos and the Chargers are still alive in the AFC Championship, the Chargers would want to host that instead of going to Denver.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
that's the real reason.